Okay, but once you do all that, and that's a problem, right? With some neurocognitive memory problems with the vets, it's like you almost have to sit down with them for hours and help them pull it back together.
If you take away the daily stressors and get the veteran in a quiet place, his brain will be able to heal. You know, you have to kind of pull yourself. You have to dig deep inside to pull that information out.
So it really takes a lot of work as a VSO to try to help the veteran.
Well, the basic instructions, some of them don't get the basic instructions.
So did you notice, you were an NCO.
Mm-hmm.
Worked with a lot of bright young people.
I work with geniuses.
Yeah. And, they were high quality recruits.
Mm-hmm.
During that time, correct?
Yes.
And easy to train, eager. What has happened to them?
Well, while I was in theater, I can't give names, but I can tell you by rank. First incident when I saw that rage pop out and it threw us for a loop was a lieutenant colonel in the op cell. He just lost it. Next thing I noticed, my legs wouldn't move, my hands wouldn't move. Or come in across that parking lot, go to log in into the computer, and my hands would dance across the keyboard.
Couldn't control them.
Couldn't control my hands until my body decided it'd work on its own. My command and control tech, spitting up blood at work and legs. After a while, his legs didn't work. A couple days later, I started spitting up blood and went in a 3-day coma.
What happened when some of your people came home? You were mentioning you were trying to follow up with some of your people that got reassigned.
One in particular, the command and control tech actually called his home base, the very office he worked in. They said he never existed.
And you had been his NCO.
Mm-hmm.
Over in...
Mm-hmm. He was basically my right-hand man.
And so you called to check on how he was doing and follow up.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't able to be found.
I had to give a written statement to some officials on the guys I served with and what I saw. I seen everything from rashes to stuff that looked like sunburn. I mean, kid, come over healthy. Next thing you know, he's have to bathe in cream. Rashes you couldn't explain. Memory loss you couldn't explain. One of my airmen came home, and all of a sudden he looked like he was something right out of The Walking Dead when we got a report on him.
Well, we've talked about the memory problems and the fatigue. We're both veterans in Gulf War and experienced it ourselves and seen it with others. How would you get the message out to medical professionals that this is really real, that this is debilitating, this is a definite change from these people that were high achievers, that were going to college, along with their jobs, taking college and everything else. I mean, how do you get it through to civilians or other medical healthcare providers that this is really serious?
Stop assuming. Stop assuming and look at everything from 1980, from the start of the Gulf War itself, September 1980, then follow a timeline. I mean, cut the timeline down in sections. Real world weapons were being used. 1990, those same weapons that were used in the Iran-Iraq war all of a sudden are being hit and degraded, and each side throwing different stuff at each other. You throw one thing, we throw something back. But the stuff we usually threw back hit the wrong stuff. Some stuff wasn't meant to be blowed up.
What kind of support did you see for the troops from higher level? You being an NCO and looking at officers to support their troops and take care of them. What kind of support did you see?
Well, after we left Saudi Arabia and got back home to our mother units, when your illness starts showing up, you had very little support. And I was blessed to have, knowing, since I worked in the headquarters, knowing key people. And when I made that transition back to North Texas, I met more key people who were able to help me to make the medical transition, despite what they were doing to me at Randolph.
Okay. What has been the effort, since you came back? You mentioned Randolph and the Air Force. Are they trying to help, or are they impeding progress?
I would say the medical board. I really have to work on the medical board side, because when I was medically boarded, my official diagnosis from Saudi Arabia was viral syndrome. But when they finished with it, it was a mental health case. And everything else, out of all the exams I had, the official medical exams were never added to my medical board records. It's like I'm three different people to different parts of the Air Force.
And how does that make you feel personally?
It was like I nearly watched from the time I left for basic training. I was born and raised into the U.S. Air Force. And I thought after Vietnam things would have got better. But sometimes I seen the very worst of people who wore the Air Force blue. And they were very unprofessional.
Who has been the ones you mentioned about people saying you weren't in any war and, downgrading the honor, the integrity of Gulf War veterans? What range of people were this? Was this active duty or
these
VA?
These were from active duty, medical people, medical board professionals, VA staff. I watched a VA doctor in Houston actually say there were no Gulf War vets in that hospital. And we actually waved our hands at the cameraman and said, here we are. And we literally took over in '94 at Houston to get the word out.
And all those programs have gone down the tube that were started in '93, '94, '95, correct?
Well, what was supposed to have been funded just kind of is now a fond memory.
You've been involved since early on, and we met each other early on. And you were involved in Dr. Haley's research. What do you think about losing that research at the point that we lost it?
Well, being here in North Texas, that was a vital link to our recovery. Not only on the research side, but that was groundbreaking medical work. You cannot just walk up to a veteran and say, I'm going to treat the symptoms. If you don't even know what the problem is, how can you even open your mouth? When we started getting answers, that's when somebody decided, well, we didn't need the answers, and then decided to cut the program.
Explain that some more, because you weren't a Navy CB, you were an Air Force. You lived in North Texas. How did you get involved with Haley's research and become one of the subjects?
One day I got a letter, and I had been in the Dallas VA and had talked to mental health officials with the help of the vet center out of San Antonio. I presented problems that nobody really didn't understand. So I wasn't going to take the mental health route. I knew what my physical being was before my first deployment to Saudi in '88. I knew what the second circumstances was when I went back in '93. And then when I turned around to make that transition out, all of a sudden I'm, a guy with a top secret clearance. Now I'm a world-class lunatic. That don't work like that. I'm still the same person. I just had to after a 3-day coma, you have to remake yourself. But I documented my whole medical case from day one. And every chance I get, I carry that notebook with me.
So you went through all the initial study with the CBs as kind of a control group?
Oh, not the initial group, but the secondary group.
Okay, so you went through a lot
The
of
screening,
testing.
yeah.
With UT Southwest. And what was your opinion of that testing as compared to what you saw at VA or, other places?
It was like meeting 25th century medicine versus the Flintstones medical system.
And what would you say to the VA headquarters about the OIG investigating the UT Southwest and ending the program at third year point?
I think it was just flat out wrong. They never talked to the veterans who were in the program. I don't even, because if they'd have told me what I thought, where in the world are you going to find professionals in one group? Dallas has the best professionals on the planet. I got to meet some of the best and brightest folks you could present to a veteran. They ask questions, you give answers, you ask questions of them, and you got to meet people who did things that wasn't even from, your realm of doing things.
And they really were looking for answers.
Put it this way, it wasn't a waste of money.
You read the OIG report, I'm sure, on that situation. What would you counter to the VA about their OIG report on the UT Southwest medical program, and it didn't meet the standards of government contracting? And
the first thing I thought about, that's just pure hogwash. It's just plain, flat out hogwash. They didn't go through the program. They don't know who we are. Just some guy in the VA. I'm just another name and number on a piece of paper. I'm not a statistic. I'm a living, breathing human.
do you feel that there was more involved in killing that program than what they said in the VA OIG report?
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in a few meetings. That's the only thing I can say. If I could just been a small spectator in the room, just sitting there listening to the whole process.
What would you have told them as an NCO, as a leader? What would you, if you were there and not a fly on the wall and could interact, what would you have told them?
I would have told them, you tell me all the names of the people I worked with over a period of time and their current health conditions. I'd have told you, if you'd have said they all been healthy, I'd have called you a liar. Flat out lie.
Okay, but what would you have told them about ending the UT Southwest medical program?
Just dead but wrong. It was just wrong. How in the world can you stop a program midstream when they don't even have all the answers, but they were working towards answers that see beyond the face and the skull? You can tap on the skull, but you can't look through a human's, through skin and bone and say, okay, I see where your problem is.
So the veterans are the loser in the process?
Yeah,
is that what
they're
you're
the
saying?
biggest losers.
What do you think about the efforts of VA's research that they just announced, 3 research programs that they funded to the tune of millions of dollars?
I'm not included in it.
No, I mean...
No, but I'm just saying...
You've read about what types of research it's going to be. Do you think that will be beneficial for yourself or any other in the long run?
Unless you start going backwards and looking at the root cause of Gulf War illness.